Namaste, Swagatam, Vanakkam everyone to day 4 of the SBV Yoga Mahotsav 2022. We shall be beginning in a few minutes. Exactly at 10:30 we begin. And today we have with us two eminent speakers. We have Dr. Sampadananda Mishra ji and Dr. Ganesh Rao ji. So looking forward to a very wonderful event today. And I request all our participants who are joining us, when possible, keep your video on so that the speakers can see you and know who they are talking to. And of course, we are also streaming it live on the Saita YouTube channel for those who have not registered so that everybody can benefit. I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Sampadananda Mishra ji, who is with us today. And we also have with us the eminent Dr. Rama Reddy sir, who's joining us also this morning, and all our participants who are joining. So welcome everyone to day 4 of this International Yoga Therapy Convention being organized as part of SBV Yoga Mahotsav 2022. We have had very beautiful sessions on day 1. At the beach, we had an amazing session led by our Lieutenant Governor, Dr. Tamilisai Soundararajan. We had the in-person session at SBB with Yogacharya Sridharan ji, Dr. Vinay Chandra ji. We have had with Nritya Jagannathan ji and my dear Subbu Bhaiya, and Devasena also was there that day. And we have had excellent sessions with Seduraman sir, Dr. Ramareddy sir, Dr. Jayaraman Mahadevan, and Sangeeta from Italy. So today we are looking forward to this. Let us begin by invoking the Guru Parampara, who enables us to be the best version of ourselves. Oh. Tadvaram Paryaya Vidmahe Jnanalingeshwaraya Dhimahi Tanno Guru Prachodayate Om. Om Yoga Maharishi Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Pudavai Kalemamani Pudavai Shakti Yoga Charani Ammaji Meenakshi Devi Bhavanani Guru Mata Ki Jai. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. This morning, our first speaker is our very dear Dr. Sampadananda Mishra ji. Dr. Sampadananda Mishra, he has been connected to Pondicherry for many, many years now, and recently has joined as Professor Rashtram School of Public Leadership, which keeps him a little physically distant from Pondicherry, but not psychically distant at all. I came to know of Sampadananda ji many years ago, and his efforts enabled us to work together on many projects at the Sri Aurobindo Society. And when the Puducherry chapter of Indian Yoga Association was formed, it was our pleasure, and it is still our pleasure, to have him as the secretary of the Puducherry chapter of Indian Yoga Association. He is passionate. Passionate is a less word when we talk about Sampadananda ji and Sanskrit. It's not passion. I think it's his every breath is Samskrita. That is the type of deep love he has for it. And his devotion for Sri Aurobindo and the Divine Mother is unparalleled. We have seen that he has made many, many significant contributions to the field of Samskrita. And he was honored in 2011 with the Maharishi Badarayana Vyasa Samman, which is the President's Award, for his outstanding contribution to Samskrita. And in 2014, the Ministry of Culture, Government of India, conferred the Senior Fellowship Award to carry out research on the Vedic art of multiple concentration. He has literary excellence awards and the Kendra Sahitya Akademi Bala Puraskar for 2018 for his book Sanaya, a book on rhyming songs in Samskrita for children. Because when you want to take Samskrita to children, when you want to take anything to children, it has to be in a playful manner. It has to be taken so that they can assimilate and understand it. And as recently as 2020, he was conferred the Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyaya recognition of re-engineering India. More than all of this, what always stands out to me is his simplicity and his devotion to the cause of Samskrita and yoga, especially the integral yoga perspective as propagated by Sri Aurobindo and the Divine Mother. So with this short introduction, welcoming you, Sampadananda Mishra ji, to give your presentation today on the topic mantra, connecting with the pure sounds for self-healing. Over to you, Ji.
Dhanyavad, Dr. Anand Balayogi Bhavanani ji. So, and this event itself, like how it started, I was seeing all the beautiful YouTube footage. So, it's a very important event which gives a push to the kind of work that should happen in the field of yoga. And for that, my gratitude to the Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth and the yoga center that you are leading there. And then happy to see you all here present, Meenakshi ji and Meena Ramanathan ji and others. I see also Sushant Singh here and Dayanidhi and others. I am not familiar with many names. And Rama Reddy sir is also present here. My topic today is connecting with the pure sound for self-healing. For me, as a practitioner, what matters is the silence. Silence is the very source of sound. When we talk about mantra, the mantra comes from silence, and the mantra has the power to instill silence in every part of our being. If it is done accurately, if it is done sincerely, intensely, with proper devotion. Tradition has its own way of initiating a disciple to the mantra, Shastra. But one can follow the simple way of aspiration, sincerity, dedication, devotion, purity, maintaining purity, yet invoking the Guru within, the Shastra within, and continue with the sadhana. The real Guru, the real Shastra, the real mantra is within. Ultimately, one has to find one's own mantra within oneself. Till then, the rest of the mantras which we find in different texts or we receive from the Guru, they're the guide. Those sounds are they show us where to reach, how to discover that sound which is the sound of, like, I have to discover my own sound, my own music. And once I discover, I have to remain in tune with that and organize every aspect of my life around that realization. So that is what is the yoga, that I remain connected with the nucleus, that sound, that nodal point, which is the vibration central to my own being. And that nodal point, that nucleus is my Guru, my Shastra. And that is what, when I remain connected with, and all my life's activities, when they're centered around that nucleus, so I'm following a path of yoga. And then whatever activity I do, it becomes the yogastha karma. Yogastha karma. And that has tremendous power of healing. And the sound heals, that we know, like how science, modern day science, has so many experiments and so many research papers also we find with regard to how sound heals. I do not need to describe that or elaborate that, what science does with sound, and it's a known fact today. But my focus is going to be today, how do we raise ourselves and prepare ourselves to that level where, when we remain connected with that pure sound, how do we connect that? If we look at our own life at a practical level, every one of us at a practical level, and some of us are little evolved, some may not be evolved, maybe on the way. So it's a journey in which someone has go ahead, someone is still yet to reach certain point, but we all are seekers. But what we find, that ordinarily we all are limited by many limitations. We are limited by many limitations. We are limited by our own narrowness of our consciousness. And this is what the Gita says, that karpanya dosha, the miserliness, which creates all kinds of meanness, narrowness, limitations, and doesn't allow us to have experience everything in its pure form, experience in its pure form, in its broader form. So our mind is limited, our sensational, emotional being is limited, our physical being is limited. That is why we need to follow the path of yoga, so which brings expansion at every level. So when we do the yogasanas, when we follow the path of hatha yoga, so the purpose is not to build a body, or the purpose is not to how accurately we do the postures, to show off people that how, what kind of accuracy I have achieved at the physical level, but to grow more and more conscious of the nucleus of the body, to have more awareness about the body, about every aspect of the body, to bring that suppleness, to bring that rhythm. So then every physical movement becomes a yogic movement, becomes a musical movement, like how dancers speak. But if we look at ordinarily, our physical movements are, most of the physical movements are unnecessary. And any unnecessary movement is a wastage of energy. This is where yoga comes to our help, where we find that we have to have a check on every unnecessary movement. So similarly, different paths of yoga, which are given to us by our rishis, by our rishi tradition, depending upon what is conducive to one's own swabhava and swadharma, one follows that. We keep trying out so many ways, but there is something which clicks to us. Someone follows the hatha yoga, someone follows the raja yoga, someone follows the kriya yoga, someone follows this path, someone follows that path. Doesn't matter, but we have to be clear that why do we cling to a particular path, and what does it do to my consciousness? What does it do to my whole being, or different parts of my being? That awareness has to be there. And in the process of following this, in the process of practicing for myself, what I have discovered, that mantra has a tremendous power to heal. And we all know that. And anything that we begin, any action that happens, any function that happens, when we begin it with a mantra, we begin it with that trust that things will go well, because I have done the mantra. And if we have not done the mantra, or if we have done it incorrectly, it gives a sense of unhappiness, no joy. So one of the powers, one of the functions of the mantra is that it creates tremendous joy, ananda, which again is the source of all healing. If the mantra is not creating joy, and when does it not create joy when it is done mechanically, when it is done with no awareness, when it is done like a robot, like a machine, that I have to perform, this is my ritual, I do it. So that doesn't create that ananda, that doesn't create that joy in us. Then it doesn't really heal. Even though we do any mantra for a fraction of second, fraction of a moment, just one single sound, O or Hrim or Shri or Im or Aham, if it is done with that awareness, that sincerity, that intensity in our aspiration, with that purity, even that fraction of second is tremendously helpful for a greater cause. So why mantra works and what do we need to do and what are these mantras? Who have given to us these mantras? The simple thing we must remember that mantras, no one composes any mantra. This, you cannot say that so and so has composed a mantra for me and given me, or given to the humanity, given to all, that this is a mantra which is composed by so and so. No. Mantras are seen, mantras are felt, mantras are heard. So mantras are those sounds which are heard in a different state of consciousness. And for that, a rishi to whom a mantra reveals has a long preparation. Without tapasya, without bahusrutya, without daksha, daksha means like one's competence. Without bahusrutya means many learnings. Without tapas, igniting that flame of aspiration within oneself. Tapas is not just to sit cross-legged with eyes closed, but it is that ignition of the flame of aspiration within oneself and feel the warmth of that flame of aspiration and then carry it forward. So if one has not done tapas, if one has not done the bahusrutya, means many learnings from many sources, from the texts, from the people, from the cohorts, from anything that lies outside, from our own experiences, because life is the whole field of education, and education is the process by which we learn. So that's why our entire life is an opportunity for educating ourselves. So bahusrutya, many learnings, all these are preparations for the expansion of our consciousness. And when someone rises to a level, higher level, one's inner vision and one's inner audition, one's inner instruments become pure, become capable of receiving, seeing, feeling, smelling, hearing, all that cannot be heard, seen, felt, tasted, smelled through our outer sense organs. So it is something going beyond the senses. So that is why when Shvetaketu, or seeker, who was admitted into the Gurukul, after 12 years of learning, when he comes back, his father Rishi Uddalaka looks at his body language, looks at his eyes, looks at the way he walked, he talked. And then he said to himself, my God, 12 years of Gurukul education and my son has not learned anything, because nothing is reflected in his movement. Nothing is reflected in his eyes, his body language, his face. He seems to have grown more arrogant than what he was before going to Gurukul. So what did the learning do to him? So when he was about to enter his home, Rishi Uddalaka stops him at the gate and then asks him three questions. He says, tell me, have you learned that, knowing which, The unthinkable can be thought of, the unheard can be heard, the unseen can be seen. What profound questions! What profound questions! Yena amatam matam bhavati, ashrutam shrutam bhavati, adrishtam drishtam bhavati. The unseen can be seen, the unheard can be heard, and then unthinkable can be thought of. And a rishi is in that state of consciousness when these three becomes natural to his consciousness. By the power of his tapas, he develops that inner power of audition by which he hears the voice of the truth directly. He sees the truth directly. He feels the presence of the truth directly. He is a pratyaksha drashta, pratyaksha shrota of what? Of that pure sound, which reverberates that entire realization of the truth, reverberates in his entire consciousness and gets organized in the form of a mantra. He sees that mantra. Because the rishi is in a state of purity, he translates it in its pure form without any distortion. So the mantra is that pregnant, potent sound which carries the essence of an experience with no loss of content, as it was seen, as it was heard, as it was felt, as it was seen at the level, so he has given the expression to it. That's why a rishi says, Yadrageva dadrishe tadraguchyate. Whatever I have seen, I'm presenting that without any distortion. So any mantra that we pick up for our practice, we have to remember that we need to explore in the beginning, like which mantra is more conducive to my own temperament, my own inner being. That the moment I hear the sound, my entire being dances with joy. Whenever I see that particular image, that symbol, there is joy in me. Then I know that that is what is my sound, that is what is my symbol. That is where I can meditate upon, I can contemplate upon. That is what I can repeat. So the practice of yoga, mantra yoga, is a preparation through the mantra to raise our consciousness to that level of purity, where everything can be seen, felt, heard, thought of in its pure form. Just go out, sit in the nature, sit silently. And when you listen to the pure sound of the chirping of the birds, the pure sounds of the breeze, the pure sounds of the flapping of the leaves, that also works like a mantra. If you can open yourself to that and then see the amount of silence with which it fills the entire thing. Looking at the sky, the space, feeling the vastness, allowing that largeness to grow in our own being is also mantra, and see how it heals. It is not this sound or that sound, this textbook or that textbook which provides the mantra. Mantras are all around. Mantras have a presence everywhere, at every time. The task of a seeker is to open himself or herself to listen to that pure sound, which is the mantra. And the very fact that the rishis have given us such words, they have worked out for the entire humanity certain formulas, certain sounds which they have given to us, which work Even though we have not yet discovered our own sound, our own guru, our own shastra within ourselves, till then, these sounds have tremendous power in preparing ourselves, in finding out that secret guru, the secret mantra, the secret shastra, which lies hidden within our consciousness. So, the mantras that we find in different texts are the mantras to which we get initiated by some outer guru, external guru, or external shastra. They have tremendous power because they are set into a particular pattern. No one has done it consciously, but it naturally organized pattern, which is music itself, which is so full of rhythm, which is so full of music, so full of purity, so full of that potentiality. These are potent sounds, very powerful sounds. The moment we come in contact with these mantras, it starts working in our consciousness if we have enough sincerity within ourselves. If we approach the mantra with that purity and aspiration, most of the times people do approach the mantra with many vested interest, selfish interest. And in the market, you will find mantras for this, mantras for that, mantras for happy married life, mantras for good wealth, mantras for that. I don't blame that, but one has to have that clarity that for what we are approaching the mantra. Is that the real purpose of life? Is getting married and then living a happy married life the ultimate purpose of life? Then yes, fine, I will use that mantra. If getting wealth is the real purpose of life, then you direct yourself towards that. So while practicing and preparing ourselves, whatever the practice may be, it is necessary that we have to have the clarity and purity in our purpose. With that consciousness, with that awareness, we approach the mantra. The very word mantra itself is a mantra. Every word in Sanskrit, therefore, is a mantra. By saying this, I am not limiting the power of mantra to any particular language. Because mantra has no language. Mantra is all about silence. Because the source of every sound is silence. The ultimate aim of mantra is to lead towards that state of silence. Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. That complete silence. No chaos. No perversion. No movement. There is an absolute state of silence. Towards that, the mantra leads. Till then, it is just a vaikhari. But we need to practice for our preparation. Therefore, in the tradition, they say that in the beginning, the mantras have to be chanted aloud, vaikhari. So then it starts vibrating and impacting the external and internal environment both. When the practice continues, then there comes a stage where we reach at the stage of Upanshu, where there can be murmuring, there can be lip movements, but it's not that audible, that loud sound. Going ahead, one attains to that state where it becomes manasa. One doesn't make any effort. It is not prayasa. In the beginning, there is prayasa, means effort. One has to try it out. One has to put much effort. But then a stage comes at the manasa stage. It is It happens naturally. There's no prayasa. The japa, the repetition of the sound becomes a natural part of the consciousness. It gets repeated within the consciousness by itself. And the practitioner is all aware about that, is fully aware of that. And going ahead, what happens? As a consequence, the Chaitanya of mantra comes to the front. What was implicit becomes explicit. What was inherent, it becomes overt. So then the Chaitanya is awakened. The ultimate result of the practice of mantra is that we need to awaken the mantra Chaitanya, the consciousness, the very awareness, the nucleus of that sound, and bring it to the forefront. Let it impact, let it affect every part of our being, every cell of ours. Let every cell of ours be filled with that power of the mantra. So awakening, that therefore in the tradition you have so many mantras. For example, like you take Om Bhur Bhuvasva Tat Savitru Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonam Prachodayat, which is famous as Gayatri mantra. There's so much of Purascharana which is done by many practitioners, by which the Chaitanya of that mantra is now in the front. So anyone who practices it, one feels the vibration, feels the purity, feels some kind of liberation within oneself, that I'm liberated. Similarly, Mahamrutyunjaya mantra, Om Gam Ganeshaya Namaha. There are plenty of such mantras, but because of much effort of our sadhaks, so much of purascharana of that mantra, repetition of that mantra is done, doing which it has been awakened, it has been brought to the forefront, so then it serves the purpose of Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata. When a mantra Chaitanya gets awakened, it does good to everyone, anyone who comes in contact with that, consciously or unconsciously. But it does some good. But to get the right effect or concentrated effect of a mantra, it has to be done very consciously. It has to be done with absolute purity in purpose, purity in aspiration, intensity in our practice, with all sincerity and devotion. When these become our, uh, you know, uh, process of approaching the mantra and practicing the mantra, it has tremendous healing power. The mantras, you can heal others when you know the art and science of healing yourself. A healer, a true healer, he feels the same pain of his or her client within himself or herself and cures it within himself or herself. Then it has the impact, and then someone gets cured. It's all about healing oneself first, the self healing. And mantras are tremendously powerful for any kind of healing. It has direct impact on every part of our being, every part of our consciousness, every layer of our existence. It just penetrates that power of the purity of the vibration of the sound, it just penetrates into every layer of existence. So this being the power of mantra, as I mentioned, that we need to approach it with all purity. We need to approach it with all sincerity. We need to approach it with all devotion. Then the mantras will work. And as I said, that mantras have no language. Mantra is all about silence. It is not this language or that language which is a mantric language. Any form of sound can be raised to the level of mantra. It all depends upon the rishi, how the language is being used, by whom, with what purpose, with what consciousness. Then we have the question that how do I know which one is my mantra? What kind of mantra should I practice? How do I put myself in a situation of practice so then it enables me to find out, to discover my own mantra, and then I move forward for the fulfillment of that in my consciousness. So this is where the practice part becomes important in the beginning. Exploration. So these are the three ways: exploration, discovery, and fulfillment. We keep on exploring. We keep on experimenting with different sounds, different mantras, in order to discover what exactly is the mantra of my own self, what is my own nucleus. And to remain, and once the discovery happens, to remain attuned to it for its fulfillment. And this is where one important practice which comes is the practice of the Varnamala. The practice of Varnamala. The sounds that we find in the Sanskrit alphabet, starting from A to Ha. Sometimes when we turn to the tantric text, we find it is not from A to Ha, but A to Ksha. That's why Mala is called Aksha Mala. It contains all the sounds from A to Ksha, Aksha Mala. But we find the fundamental sounds are organized in the alphabet, starting with A and ending with Ha. If you follow the physical uh, articulation of all the sounds, that you will see that all these sounds are organized as per their places of articulation. And A begins from the throat. This is the first sound which comes from the first position. And then moving through the different articulatory points, going to the palatal sounds, then to the cerebral sounds, the dental sounds, and the labial sounds. Again, you come back to the source, which is Ha. So it begins with A, ends with Ha, starts from the position number 1, and ends with the position number 1. That's how it forms a mala. That's how it forms a mala. And every sound here has its own guna, own property. That's where when we turn to because the Kashmir Shaivism, the Sri Vidya tradition, the Tantric tradition has given so much of importance to these sounds, the Bija mantras, the Bija aksharas. And they could discover by their contemplation, by repeating those sounds, they could discover the properties, the gunas of each and every sound. And when we take a sound as a mantra, say for example, the sound A, this can become our mantra, anyone's mantra. It can be it can be it can be simply It is the most potential sound because of which Krishna himself says in the Gita that Aksharana Akarosmi. That among all the Aksharas, I am A. So any sound from the Varnamala can become a mantra. And when we practice the mantra, it is not merely the repetition of the sound, but the gunas which lie behind the sound, they can become the object of our meditation and contemplation. For example, like if you turn to the Tantra Abhidhana, you will find A refers to Vishnu, or refers to Paramashiva, or refers to Brahman, or refers to anything which is highest, or refers to anything which is highest. Sri Aurobindo, while dealing with every sound, he reduces all the different meanings into one single property. He says A is the absolute existence, absolute state of existence, the Parabrahman. Similarly, E has its own guna, U has its own guna, Ka has its own guna, Ma has its own guna. So when we take up the mantra practice for any kind of healing purpose or self-healing, we have to be aware of the different gunas which each and every sound carry, that become the object of our contemplation and meditation while repeating the mantra. So therefore, the entire Varnamala again is reduced to two very important sounds, O and Aham. Aham, the word Aham is also a very potential mantra which refers to I, the individual self. Why? Because every fundamental sound that we find in the Varnamala, every sound that we find in different languages, all these sounds, they reverberate in this body. That's why Tantra calls this body as a Gatra Veena. It's a musical instrument. Gatra. Another name for body is Gatra because it sings. Tra means instrument, instrument of singing. So the sounds are already there in our body, in our being. Practice of mantra must educate us, must raise us to that level when we become aware of the sounds which are already reverberating in our own being, in our own existence, physical, mental, psychic, spiritual existence. When we can arrive at that point, then we know that we have the power to heal ourselves. And when we have the power to heal ourselves, we can heal anyone in the world. That is why the seers and sages, they gave so much of importance to Atma Jnana. You want to know anything in the world? Know yourself. Yasmin Vijnate Sarvam Vijnatam Bhavati. Knowing that, everything becomes known. So as I said, Om can be one mantra for oneself to begin with, which is the most potential sound, the essence of all sounds. Similarly, like O, Aham also can be one mantra. Tantra says that Adirantena Sanyoga Ahamityeva Jayate. You connect the beginning sound with the end sound. The beginning sound A with the end sound Ha. The mantra becomes Aham. It means like when we say Aham, we must feel that all the sounds beginning with A and ending with her, all the sounds which come between A and her, they are there in a part of my integral part of my own consciousness, my own existence. They are reverberating within me, and it makes me aware of those sounds which are there. That's why in our ritual we have Anganyasa, we have the Marma therapy works of Ayurveda. It works based on these processes. Every Marmasthana has its own sound, every Chakrasthana has its own sound, own mantra. So the practice of mantra like Om, Aham, in the beginning, it makes us more aware of the different sounds, the different mantras, the purity of those vibrations which already exist within ourselves. And we need to, the ultimate aim of practicing any mantra for the Atma Jnana or for self healing is to grow aware of what lies hidden within us. So I think with these words, I will uh, end my own presentation. If there are questions, I'll address to that. And again, once again, I express my deep sense of gratitude for giving me this opportunity for presenting my thoughts.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sampadananda ji. A very beautiful exposition on mantra and how we can tap into that inner guru, the guru sakshat, and thus have clarity in our life that will then enable us to help others. And when you were talking, I was reminded of Amma's statement. She said one of the statements that brought her to yoga was the statement that you quoted, where by knowing which we will know everything. That by knowing which we will know everything. And what a beautiful high level of thinking our great rishis have had. And we truly have to regain our rishi culture, and we have to connect to it. A very beautiful session, and I thank you for being with us and sharing your excellent thoughts that are uplifting, inspiring, and will enable us to go deeper. The theme of this whole convention is strengthening the cultural ethos of yoga therapy. We cannot take yoga away from its culture, and the culture is a culture which had the mantra drishtas as our forefathers, who could be worthy enough to tap into the universal mantras. As you said, you don't create a mantra, you tap into it. You become worthy of that signal. You attune to that signal. Beautiful thoughts, and we thank you on behalf of Saiter for being with us this morning and sharing these thoughts with so many of our seekers through Satsanga this morning. Thank you, Dhanyavad ji. We now move to the second session, which is by a very eminent and most inspiring yogi of modern times. My dear Ganesh Rao sir, welcome sir. A pleasure to have you with us this morning. And whenever I meet Dr. Ganesh Rao sir, my first feeling is that I'm looking at myself in the mirror. Now, as you may note, both of us have a beard, both of us have those glasses, and physical structure wise, we are a little similar. Maybe slightly skin tone is different, that's all. But I tell you, whenever I meet him and I listen to him, I feel as if I'm hearing myself speak. And I remember a few years back at Kaivalyadhama, we were in many meetings, and when he was talking, I'm like, oh my God. So this is what it sounds when I say these things. Because I was hearing those thoughts, those words coming through another being. That is the type of resonance I feel with Dr. Ganesh Rao sir. And Ganesh Rao sir is a doctorate in philosophy, and he has numerous qualifications in yoga, naturopathy, first aid and nursing, in management. But I think what is very special about him is his own institution, which he calls ACT Yoga. And the first time I heard it, I was like, ACT Yoga, what does that mean? And then I looked at it, authentic, classical, traditional. What a beautiful, acronym that ACT is: authentic, classical, traditional. And every time he speaks, these three words come through very clearly. And sir is currently playing a very vital role at Kaivalyadhama as an advisor to Kaivalyadhama, Mumbai, and a member of the board of studies of Kaivalyadhama, Lonavala. And this is why we often interact, because Kaivalyadhama is also my yoga home, my second yoga home. So we often interact through Kaivalyadhama. And Sir is currently serving as the Director of Academics and Accreditation in the Indian Yoga Association. Some time back, under his guidance, the committee drafted a very beautiful, comprehensive outlook of yoga that will be published by the Indian Yoga Association soon, as what does the Indian Yoga Association perceive yoga to be? What is our sort of white paper on what yoga is from the Indian perspective? Very comprehensive. Sir is guiding so many candidates, both in the University of Mumbai, as well as the university at Nagpur, the KK Samskrita University. And he has also an amazing knowledge of Western philosophy, which he has shared for many years at the Institute of Technology and Management, Mumbai. He has run many teachers training courses. He has been part of the board of studies at Sri Sri Yoga University, the expert committees for the Quality Council of India, the Indian Yoga Association, and all of that. All of this I've known about Sir, and we have interacted, and I've come to know all of this. But something I didn't know, I came to know this morning, because I was looking at his biodata a bit more to know other facets, and I came to know he has been a footballer. Now this you never told me. And I was like, oh my God, I could immediately see you on the football pitch, and he is represented at the state level and coached at the state level, and so many footballers have received coaching, and I'm sure a lot of yoga has gone into football as a result of that passion of yours. And as a former cricketer, I think I can very much resonate with that. So I also played a lot of football, and that's why Messi is my current favorite. It used to be Maradona, of course, always. Maradona was our first one. It would be interesting to know your favorites in that. So on that light-hearted mode, I am going to invite Dr. Ganesh Rao, sir, who is Chief Advisor, Academics and Training at Kaivalyadhama, to give his talk on the insights into the Darsanic and cultural aspects of yoga therapy. Over to you, sir. You need to unmute, sir. I think it's muted. Yeah, perfect.
Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. Namaste. Yes.
Thank you very much for this brief introduction, which was very elaborate. In the first place, on behalf of Kaivalyadhama, I would like to thank the organizers, my dear Bandhu, Dr. Anandaji, for inviting me in this week-long international seminar for sharing my thoughts on the topic that you just mentioned. Darsanic and cultural aspects of yoga therapy. Yeah. Once again, I extend best wishes from Kaivalyadhama for the CITER team for the success of this seminar, the efforts that you have put in. My best wishes along with those of Kaivalyadhama's. The popularity of yoga today is soaring in geometric progression, and to a great extent this popularity is because of the promise of therapy that is there in yoga. In the last 20 years or so that I have been in yoga, I have yet to come across an individual who has come to me to get into yoga for the sake of attaining moksha or kaivalya. This is not yet happened. Yeah. Therefore, despite yoga being a moksha shastra in essence, and Bharatiya Samskriti, Indian culture, on which yoga is founded, being adhyatmic or spiritual, the therapy angle of and in yoga cannot be minimized, nor can it be overemphasized. Therapy is there. Having said that, what I would like to talk about or share my thoughts on the therapy which is inbuilt in our culture and the therapy which comes directly from the Darshana, the philosophy part. If you take the term Samskriti, which stands for culture, all of us know it is made up of two words, Sama and Krita, which means that which is done well, that which is refined. And as contrasted against civilization, the term civilization, the term culture refers to refinement which is internal in nature. Refinements of one's own feelings, thoughts, attitudes, approaches to life, our dealings with our fellow human beings, dealings with nature, all of this come into this concept of culture. And the coincidence is the best answer to the question, why should one do yoga? Is it for getting rid of diabetes or hypertension or obesity or looking good in front of the mirror? The best answer, what occurs to me is, one should do yoga to become a better human being. And when I say to become a better human being, it means to refine myself as a human being. And that is why we may not be wrong in saying that yoga is a culture. It is a Samskriti. And not only culture or a culture, it can be referred to as the culture, the human culture, because all human beings, irrespective of caste, creed, race, region, religion, nationality, age, gender, all of them have the same dimensions in the personality, and all the dimensions require refinement. Unlike the outsider, concept of outsider, which became popular 30-40 years back in Western literature, talking about an intellectual outsider represented by examples like Friedrich Nietzsche, or emotional outsider like Vincent van Gogh, or a physical outsider like Nijinsky. Each of these outsider has developed himself or herself in one particular dimension, but the other dimensions lag behind. In yoga, when we talk about refinement or development of personality, it is always holistic development. There is no question of a sick genius in yoga. And if you take the Ashtangas of Patanjali, when we move from Yama to Samadhi, we are actually refining 8 dimensions of our personality. The Yama, which deals with the social dimension, and then going to the personal dimension, physical, physiological, mental, psychological, intuitive, finally spiritual dimension at the state of Samadhi. All the dimensions are refined, are purified. And that is why we can easily say yoga is the best human culture, because applicable to all human beings and going towards refinement of all dimensions of personality, a total holistic development. The point which needs to be emphasized in the context of this seminar is the concept of health is fundamental or foundational when it comes to any refinement of personality. A sick person cannot be spiritual, or like what we talk about in philosophy, You cannot philosophize on a hungry stomach or in a diseased body or with a disturbed state of mind. For us to progress on any dimension of personality, health is the basic assumption. Health is taken for granted. And that's how, though in Indian culture, sometimes we talk about yoga as a preventive discipline, but even in that concept of preventive discipline, health and therapy are inbuilt, because to progress in our refinement, we require health as a granted assumption. So, the dimension of yoga therapy is rooted in Bharatiya Samskriti. My first point. The second point, when we come to darshanas, darshana is the term for philosophy of the Western world, the Greek term philosophy. All Indian darshanas, Astika and Nastika, except probably Charvakas, have one goal, one common goal. And that common goal is the elimination of dukkha or sufferings from human life. If elimination of dukkha or sufferings from human life is the sole purpose of all Indian philosophies, including Buddhism and Jainism, the Nastika philosophies, then the question is there any better therapy than Indian philosophy? Because the term dukkha and elimination of dukkha is probably the ultimate therapy, the all-encompassing therapy that Indian philosophy looks to provide for human beings. So, Indian philosophy or darshana or yoga darshana, one of the Shada Astika darshanas of Indian philosophy, yoga, it starts as a therapy. And this term dukkha being the starting point, I cannot resist from talking a little bit philosophy. If dukkha is the starting point of all Indian philosophies, then normally the allegation or accusation against Indian philosophy that it is pessimistic. It is negative to begin with. Why are you starting with dukkha? But if you look deeply, then dukkha or starting with dukkha is not pessimism, it is realism. Because you cannot deny the presence of sufferings in human life. And having said that, probably Indian philosophy is the only philosophy which is the most optimistic in putting forth the idea that this dukkha can be removed once for all. There is no other philosophy which talks about that way. Some of the Western philosophies say growing old, falling sick, being lonely, these are very natural in life. Why do you make an issue out of it? But Indian philosophy says, no, this can be removed. That is the optimism which is built in Indian philosophy. And when you look at dukkha and try to see how does this term dukkha include physical and mental ill health? And that is where yoga therapy comes into the picture. Buddhism propounds 4 noble truths, out of which the first truth is dukkha. There, the fact of sufferings is inevitable in human life. In fact, Buddhism goes to the extent of saying there is no life form where dukkha is not there. Every life form suffers. And this suffering, if you take the body goes through 5 processes, and all 5 of them are painful. Birth, growth, disease, decay, death. All 5 processes are painful. If you take the mind, the Upanishads talk about the mind being ridden by the 6 enemies, Shadaripu, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. The mind does bring about pain. If you take Patanjali's 15th sutra of 2nd chapter, Sadhana Pada, Patanjali says, Parinama Tapa Samskara Dukkhahi Gunavritti Virodhacha Dukkhameva Sarvam Vivekina. For a person who has realized the goal, when he or she looks at the empirical life, he or she comes to the conclusion everything there is painful. Even the small joys and delights that we talk about, they are ephemeral, and at the end of the day, they too lead to pain. So the body and the mind, source of dukkha, coming close to Yoga Darshana. And this is where one of the insights can be had as far as yoga therapy is concerned. Yoga Darshana based upon Sankhya Darshana. It marks the stringent manner in which philosophy progressed in ancient India, because the starting of Sankhya philosophy considers the point that human beings are afflicted by 3 types of sufferings, dukkha traya, adhyatmik, adibhautik, adidaivik. Sufferings which arise due to my body, my mind, adhyatmik. Sufferings which are caused by external factors, extraorganic, but natural world. And lastly, sufferings which are caused by external factors, which are supernatural, adidaivik. And Sankhya philosophy says, to begin with, that for all these 3 sources of sufferings, there are existing remedies. Even at that point of time, when the body falls sick, Ayurveda was there. When the mind was going through pain, there were diversions of entertainment, relaxation. If the suffering is coming from external sources, then you could protect yourself by forts and fences, law and order. If it is coming from divine sources, disembodied beings, spirits, then there were mantra chantings, there were gems, incantations, stones, whose positive energy could keep away this negativity and protect you. Then why should there be another thought process of Sankhya for trying to find a remedy for this dukkha? This is very insightful for us in the context of this seminar. The first point Sankhya says is that all these existing remedies are suffering from 2 drawbacks. And mind you, if you take Sankhya as the oldest Indian philosophy and give it maybe 3,000 years back, suppose, because Sankhya definitely was before Buddha came on the scene. Buddha did learn about Sankhya philosophy. So Buddha was in the 5th century BC. So Sankhya, if you give the benefit of doubt, say 3,000 years. From 3,000 years, what were the drawbacks in the therapy systems? Even today, the same drawbacks are there. And what are those two drawbacks? Sankhya Karika says very clearly that the existing remedies suffer from two inadequacies. One inadequacy is imperfect diagnosis. And second inadequacy is impermanent solution. You can see for yourself, despite medical science having progressed so much, even today, diagnosis remains imperfect. We are still groping in the dark. Lots of times we are not able to arrive at what is the cause of the problem. Diagnosis still remains imperfect. And solution is still impermanent. Whether you take 2 vaccines or 3 vaccines for corona, you cannot say this virus is not going to inflict. It comes again and again. A chicken pox, which was supposed to be an ailment for children, there are so many adults who are getting chicken pox, who are getting again and again. Or take very close at hand common cold and cough. There is a nice saying, if you have common cold, if you take medicines, it goes in 1 week. If you don't take medicines, it goes in 7 days. But the moot point is, it comes back after 7 days. Whether you take medicines or not, it goes and comes back again. So solution is not permanent. And now go slightly deeper. Sankhya Karika says even the Vedic solutions are not the best solutions, because Vedic solutions also, Sankhya says, for the remedies, suffers from 3 drawbacks. One drawback, it says, is impurity. Some animal sacrifices involved. So the therapy or the remedy was impure. Another drawback is what is termed as a decay. This is beautiful. Decay means the yajna or good karma that you do and get punya from it, it will fetch you happiness, but that happiness comes with an expiry date. Once the power of the punya is over, you are thrown back into the old circumstances. You do tapasya, wish for heaven, I want to enjoy heavenly life. Yes, you are transport, tathastu, you are going to the heaven, you enjoy heaven there, and after some time when your punya of the yajna is over, tapasya is over, you are thrown back to the earth. There is an expiry date for that remedy there. And also, the third drawback is what is called as excess. The yajamana who performs the yajna, if he is very affluent, he or she can do it in a huge, big way. And definitely the fruits will be bigger for him. Whereas a poor person who cannot afford to do, will do it in a small manner in which the fruits will be less. And this is pure wrong discrimination. It's a drawback. So Sankhya says the existing remedies for the dukkha is imperfect, is not proper. And now the insight. So Sankhya, which is samakhyati, right knowledge, right realization, Sankhya says only when you have the right realization, then probably the chance of dukkha being eliminated once for all permanently. We'll come to know what is right knowledge based upon what wrong knowledge. But now the point that I want to make is you cannot, with the existing means at our disposal, whether medicines or doctors or counseling or psychotherapy, just confine yourself only to the body and the mind and expect for a perfect remedy. Not possible. Because samakhyati, the right realization, is realization of your true self, which is spiritual in nature. Without the spiritual angle coming into therapy, therapy will not be complete. This is the point I want to make, that without the spiritual angle coming into therapy, the therapy as regards the body and the mind cannot be perfect. It will still be lagging behind. And that spiritual part, going slightly deeper into philosophy, Even if you talk about the self with S capital and define it as Atman in Vedanta or Purusha in Sankhya or pure consciousness in a generic manner, this pure consciousness is only the static side of the more active side, which is very relevant for therapy, and that active side is energy. Consciousness is static energy. Energy is a dynamic consciousness. We have yet to explore the potential of therapy by accessing or utilizing the energy part. And this is what Patanjali does. Patanjali says, always do friendship with happy people. Why does he say that? In Chitta Prasadana technique, Patanjali says very clearly, Maitri Karuna Muditupeksha Nam Sukha Dukkha Punya Punya Vishayanam Bhavnataha Chitta Prasadanam. Why happy? Why friendship with the happy people? Not that they can give you their happiness, because nobody can give their happiness to each other. But the happiness has a tendency of getting spread energy-wise from the close proximity. That is why Patanjali says, Ahimsa Patishrayam Tat Sannido Vairatyaga. In the presence of a person who practices non-violence perfectly, all enmity disappears. These parts are directly pointing out to the efficacy of the energy angle in therapy. It's time for us, particularly from this country, because yoga is a part of a rich heritage of trying to tap that energy angle, that consciousness. And when you talk about consciousness, I mean, without going into the definition of consciousness, whether it is coming from the mind or it is body-related epiphenomenalism, all those things, keep it aside. Consciousness, when you talk about from the therapy angle, it is how much awareness you have in your day-to-day life. Being aware is aligning yourself to that conscious part in you, which is your real self, the S capital self. And that awareness, the formal way of touching it is meditation. That is why meditation is the highest practice in all forms of spirituality. Not only in yoga, you take Zen, you take Sufism, you take Christian mysticism. In every form of spirituality, meditation is the highest practice, because we realize that that energy part is what gives you once for all the benefits. The second point which I want to make is, from the Darsanic side, is all Indian philosophies, of course, except Charvakas. Charvaka is the black sheep of Indian philosophies. All Indian philosophies universally accept that this dukkha is because of avidya. The definition and description of avidya may be different. Buddhism may say your avidya is not looking at reality properly and taking some things are permanent, whereas everything is impermanent in life. Anityavada. And not realizing that everything is impermanent, you're holding on to something which is permanent, and then that is the source of all your problems. If you take Sankhya or yoga, it says not realizing Purusha is your real self, identifying with the body and the mind is the source of all your dukkha. Fine. Avidya is defined differently by different philosophies. No problem at all. The vidya or the realization that we talk about, the jnana or the prajna, that happens when you realize your reality R capital. You realize your true self. And this true self has a spiritual connotation. Even if you take consciousness as that spiritual self, even the term consciousness has spiritual connotation, because just simple logic, spiritual means of the spirit. And spirit is something which is not matter. And matter is something which is perceivable by sense organs. So that which is not perceivable by the sense organs is spirit. In you, the consciousness cannot be perceived by your sense organs. That is the spiritual part in you. That is the spiritual part in us. The consciousness is the spiritual part. I'm not going into philosophy, but if that realization of that consciousness is the way of doing away with avidya, then in the context of our seminar today, the realization of the self or the spirit or the consciousness can happen only by transcending the body and the mind. You cannot abandon the body and the mind. This is very necessary. By committing suicide, your dukkha does not go away, because you're going to get born again. Again, the dukkha is there. You cannot abandon the body and the mind. You have to transcend the body and the mind. And for transcending the body and the mind, the transcendence happens only when the body and the mind are healthy. That is why one of the antarayas, the first antaraya of Patanjali is Vyadhi. Though there Patanjali talks about antaraya, Vyadhi as an antaraya, because it is a chitta vikshepa, it's a distraction of the mind, but still, a sick person cannot be spiritual. You have to become healthy in the first place. There are no 2 points. In fact, at least for us yoga people here, we must write down boldly that growing old or rising in the hierarchy in corporate life or becoming so-called successful or raising the status in life is no excuse for becoming unfit or unhealthy. Health is the starting point. Health is the starting point. Without health, physical health, you cannot move ahead. You have to use that physical body. The body is the vehicle. That is why we talk about the soul or the spirit as embodied. Yes, that body is the body and the mind there, but the soul is within the body. It's the only vehicle for the soul is the body there. If the body is not healthy, you cannot make any progress on the spiritual side. You cannot make any progress for getting rid of that avidya. You cannot go towards the spiritual side. Not only that, you cannot reach there even if the mind is not healthy. All of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, 195 or Ashtanga Yoga Patanjali, has only one goal. And that goal is, from a tamasic and rajasic nature of mind, make it sattvic. And finally, transcend that sattvic mind, and reach the state of realization. Rajas and tamas are afflictions to begin with. When you consider from the spiritual side, they have to be reduced for you to become sattvic. Why sattva? Because only in sattvic state of mind, concentration is possible. And yoga is defined as yut samadha. Yoga is equal to concentration. Now you can get a definition of a healthy mind. A healthy mind is that which is capable of concentration. As simple as that. A mind which is capable of concentration is a healthy mind. And this is not only theory or philosophy, it is actually in real life. The more number of hours in the day you are able to do concentrated activity, the less issues of body and mind you will have in life. This is why you look at this term samadhi, it's beautiful. Samadhi is a state in which there is no vyadhi and no adi. Vyadhi is physical ailment, adi is mental ailment. Samadhi is a state where there is no physical ailment, no mental ailment. It is a state, perfect healthy state. You have got no ailments at all. And that state you reach only by removing the distractions of the mind, the lethargy of the mind. So, if you take the Ashtangas, the yamas that you practice in Ashtanga Yoga is not to become a principled person in life. Lots of time, a principled person is a problem for himself and herself. And that is why Shiv Samhita talks about Dharma Rupa Vigna. That when you become obsessed with the good, it's a bigger problem. So yamas you are doing so that you don't have interpersonal conflicts. Your mind is at rest from your interpersonal relationships. It is not capable of concentration. Niyamas are you doing so that you are adjusted with yourself, personal adjustment. Asanas you are doing so that the body becomes healthy and the body is not putting any obstacles in the process of your concentration. That is why Patanjali gives the effect of asana tata dvandhana vighataha. By doing asanas, conflicts in mind will go. By doing pranayama practices, the breathing is becoming equal through both the nostrils. Both the hemispheres are available. You are a harmonious, holistic personality, calm and peaceful in the mind. Now you can go for concentration. Pratyahar is the final nail. Okay, withdrawal of the mind from the sense organs, occupational cycle of the external world. Now you are, stopped from distractions of the external world. And dharana, dhyana, samadhi is pure concentration leading to the state of samadhi there. All the angas have only one goal. Can I make my mind concentrated? The point which I want to make is, even if you look at leave aside yoga, why is concentration giving you good health? Because concentration in simple terms is focusing of consciousness on one object. That is concentration. And when you focus consciousness, your prana inside you also gets channelized. In a normal state of our life, the prana gets dissipated here and there with too many things happening. And that dissipation will not give us the bounce, the verb or the energy that we are actually capable of. When consciousness gets concentrated, the prana is channelized, automatically you have got good health there. Your energy level starts going up. And if you look at therapy from this side, Patanjali provides so many techniques for enabling the mind to get concentrated. The 5 angas of Bahiranga Yoga, which I've just mentioned, if you take Pranava Japa, Antarayas to be removed, distractions to be removed, Ekatattva Abhyasa, Chitta Prasadana technique, Manasthiti Nibandhani technique, Pratipaksha Bhavana, meditation, all the techniques are meant for getting the mind concentrated. If you look at Yoga Darshana or Indian Darshana, I can very well say it is the ultimate therapy. Total therapy. Looking at getting rid of obesity and coming to yoga for that is like going to a supermarket and saying, can I buy a pin? And the supermarket person saying there, you have come for a pin here, there's a plane available. Yoga is a supermarket, there's a plane available. We are going there for small therapies. Small therapies. No, yoga can provide you total therapy, ultimate therapy. Total dukkha can be removed. And so many techniques available there. The darshana by itself is therapeutic. Total darshana by itself is therapeutic. The culture itself has in its ethos, in its essence, therapy built into it. We are supposed to be healthy by default. By design, we become unhealthy. I will stop here. I have reached 12 o'clock. Thank you very much for patient listening. Once again, I thank the cited team, Dr. Anandaji, for inviting me to share 45 minutes of philosophy. Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
of you take care. Yeah.
Such a pleasure to listen to you. And I think the key takeaway is that the whole of the Yoga Darshana is a wholesome therapy. So
Absolutely.
we don't need the small pieces. And I love your example of going to the supermarket which has the plane and saying, I want a small pen. I think it really tells us what has happened to, it's going to the ocean and saying, I want a small spoonful.
Absolutely.
And really, I'm always inspired your perspective of this big picture. And, I think it is important that everybody in yoga therapy, again goes back to the darshana and understand what is there. Because today, we have got limited, as you said, what are the asanas for this disease, what are the pranayamas for that disease. That the most important disease of dukkha has to be dealt with. We have to eradicate. And your concept of samadhi as a state beyond the adi and the vyadi, that is just so poetically beautiful. It's poetically beautiful because we are always caught in this turmoil. And I'm sure that everybody who's attended today's talk will take back a lot of thoughts about it. Take home messages are there. And those who have been watching on YouTube and Facebook, where we have also made it accessible to everyone, because we believe it should be accessible, but then there should also be those who commit themselves and then those who say, I'll watch it when I get time. So those who have been part of this live, I very much appreciate your taking time from around the world to be with us. Those who are watching it on YouTube and Facebook, thank you to you too also. And those who watch it after a few days, a few weeks, a few months, or a few years, thank you to you also in the future. Thank you so much, sir, for this excellent.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And just a question not related to your talk.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite footballer?
My favorite footballer. My favorite footballer sometime back was Scholes in the English team. Yeah.
Yes.
Because I'm a midfielder, and he's also a midfielder. Of course, skill-wise, there is no match to Messi, in the present scenario, and very thrilling to watch. Yes.
The moment I saw that on your profile,
You said, no, I was about to say, you told that, okay, you would have taken yoga to football. I said, it is the other way around. I'm bringing football to yoga,
I love that. I love that. We need to have a separate talk one day on the relationship between yoga and football.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure you have, in your mind, because your mind connects all the dots.
No, I will share something since you have broached. Just 2 minutes.
Yes, please.
In the last part of the career, my football career, that must be about 20 years back, 25 years back, I was participating in a big, very crucial match, with about 35,000 people sitting on the stands. And by that time, I had already initiated myself into yoga. Of course, philosophy was a part of life earlier. And in the midst of the match, when the match is going on fully, the ball was in one side of the goal. Yeah. And I was in the midfield, and my opponent was standing beside me, their forward line player. He happened to be from Uttarakhand. So I just looked at him and said, hello, how is your wife? How is your family at home? And then he looked and stared at me. He said, this is another psychological trick you're playing on me. Then I said, Arey Baba, ball is there. Why should we be enemies here? When the ball comes here, either you break my leg or I break your leg. I will not allow you to take the ball, or you don't allow me to take the ball. When the ball has not come there, why are you looking at me in this manner? I said, this is a very genuine question. Let me ask you, how is your family back home? What is so these are small instances. When awareness comes up, awareness can actually bring magic in life. It can actually bring about a totally different dimension in the way we live life if you have awareness at every point of time. Yeah. Okay.
I just love that. I love that perspective, because there is a time to fight and there's a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Such a pleasure, sir, listening to you. And I'm sure everybody's taken a lot of wisdom away from it. We close today's session at this point, and tomorrow we'll be back with some more amazing sessions. We have Yogacharini mugs from Canada talking about the teachings of Swami Shivananda Saraswati as given in the book Letters from the Masters. And then we have a nice session by Shailaja from Malaysia on the Anahata Chakra and its applications in healthy relationships. Thank you everyone for being with us. We close with a Shanti Mantra. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। धन्यवादः। थैंक यू। नमस्ते।